Marfoogle News going live in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam McKay Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We've got a big update about the big, beautiful bill. We've got a huge update about, of course, tomorrow. There's a lot of things that are in the works right now. Of course, there is a lot of events that have been canceled. They say a lot of these cities have canceled them because they're not in support of America, or that it is because there's fire hazards. But there's a lot of places that are actually canceling. Some say it's because of budget. Again, there are a lot of events happening, possibly. Again, they are even talking about a lone wolf attack, right? So they always kind of throw these scary things out there before the holidays. We'll weed through the crap, and we'll tell you what we actually think. As far as the big, beautiful bill, they, of course, had a very, very boring floor speech by Jeffries last night. They say that it was the second longest, I believe, under McCarthy, that basically talked. I believe it was over 3 hours. Some said it says that it was 8 hours in some of these articles. Again, they talk about the hogwash. Again, it really doesn't matter because at this point, now it has passed. And what does that actually mean? Well, there's some of the key points here. Of course, most of you have probably heard about some of these, but some of you are probably worried about some of the others, especially if you have family that are on Medicaid or SNAPs or food stamps, or if you're on food stamps, right? So first of all, taxes, you're going to see, of course, $40,000 for 5 years, then drops to $10,000 on taxes. No tax on tips. Deduct taxes on up to $25,000 of tipped wages. So if you make under $25,000, you will not have to deduct taxes off of your tips. Now, this is a big thing, but of course, we've talked about this over the last week, that this will end in 2028. Essentially, when the new president comes in, we don't know if that will continue. And of course, phases out for single filers making $150,000 and joint filers making up to $300,000. So essentially, from $25,000 up to $150,000, you will have to deduct that. After $150,000, then you'll be in a totally new bracket. So extremely high paid tipped jobs, like if you're, I don't know what jobs those would be. If you were at some sort of, valet for an extremely expensive club or something and you're making $200,000 a year, I don't know, then you would definitely not be in this anyways. But up to $25,000, that first $25,000, you will not have to pay taxes on, which, again, if that's just the tips part, I mean, that's crazy. And then no tax on overtime. This is a big one too. Deduct up to $12,500 in overtime pay for single filers making $150,000 and joint filers making $300,000 through 2028. No tax on car loan interest. Deduct interest paid on car loans. So just like you were able to deduct that with house loans, now you will be able to do that with new car loans. And then, of course, there's a big spending biff here. Again, $150 billion in new defense spending. And this is not our defense budget. This is in addition. $25 billion to build a Golden Dome, $29 billion for shipbuilding in the Maritime Industrial Base, $15 billion to modernize the nuclear triad, $45 billion to complete the border wall, and surge an additional $45 billion for immigration and customs enforcement. And then, of course, $4.1 billion to actually hire new border agents. So a lot of this you can see is centered around, protecting the actual country. And then, but out of $3.3 trillion, it's pretty crazy that, that makes up, not even half of a trillion, I believe, just in those at least. And then Medicaid and SNAP work requirements have gone up, and then change to Medicaid provider tax rates, revised cost sharing between federal and state governments for food benefits, and then a $5 trillion hike for the debt limit. So not a lot of people are happy about that. But again, a lot of people that are arguing about this, they're talking about, hey, I voted for this or I didn't vote for this. There's a lot of folks that are essentially supporting this no matter where it goes. Now, this is a huge, huge, huge bill. Obviously, we've talked about Elon publicly saying that this is a horrible idea and that he's going to put people's faces on it that even supported the damn thing. But as far as this goes, we don't have the full story. We don't have all of the information that they do. And I wish we did. I wish it was more transparent. I wish we understood why we're building a Golden Dome. why we have military members that are going to be deployed to Louisiana, Texas very soon here. In fact, we'll talk about that on our next show. Now, before we move on, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is a device that can actually protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, modems, Starlink modems even, again, against not only a solar event like a CME or a coronal mass ejection, but a EMP from an adversary, an electromagnetic pulse attack. Again, this is very easy to put in your car, and it means that your car will be able to run after multiple EMP strikes from any adversary, small or big. Again, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. Especially right now, there is a 20% off discount on top of this with the 4th of July sale. So make sure to get in the next few days for that. Again, marfooglenews.com/EMP and then use code MARF. All right, let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on? How are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So let's talk about the president and Israel. They've said that they agree to a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza.
Well, this is kind of like the lover's quarrel where you've got her side, his side, and then somewhere in the middle is like the truth. Well, you've got Trump's side, Israel's side, and Hamas's side. So this is Trump's side. He's saying that they have agreed to conditions for them. I think we have to sort of wait and see what really comes of that, because we've also got Israel saying there is no place for anybody from the other side in the future. And that doesn't necessarily bode well for the other side actually saying, okay, well, we'll agree to move forward if you're talking about completely eliminating us. So nonetheless, the current state of things is that there's supposed to be a ceasefire coming or underway. I have my doubts. They've never been able to uphold this very long. They've done it for a few days, and that seems to be about the most you'll get out of what's going on in the Strip. I'm just kind of shocked that this continues to go on as much as effort as Israel has put forth in it. I would have thought it would have been over by now, but apparently the other side is holding strong enough to keep the events continuing.
Yeah, so as far as all of the peace talks that have happened up until now, all of them have fallen apart. The headline is people can go, oh, well, they've agreed to a ceasefire. Well, it's Trump says that Israel has agreed. You don't have both parties involved here. And then, of course, Trump could arm Israel with USB-2s and bunker buster if Iran tries to go nuclear under this new proposal. Again, a bipartisan pair of lawmakers has proposed authorizing the president to transfer B-2 stealth bombers and 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs to Israel if Iran is found to still be developing a nuclear weapon after last week's strikes. Now, this again was a big deal when we ended up using our B-2s in the first place. That was making us involved in this. I'm sure that the angle here is that if we end up authorizing something like this, it would be them using it, not us directly involved in a huge war between them and Iran. But this says even further that they don't expect this thing to end. They're literally kind of putting it out there that there's probably going to be B-2 strikes in the future. And they're trying to set it up so if this happens again, that they would give it to Israel and Israel would do it so that our name's off of the page, off the page. So with this being said, I think that this is something that is pretty clear that this thing is not over yet and that they probably still have some nuclear production over there that they need to take out. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. And again, this would the Bunker Buster Act would allow Trump to take actions to ensure Israel is prepared for all contingencies if Iran seeks to develop a nuclear weapon. Remember all of the talk about how we are the only ones with the weapons that can actually do this. Well, if we end up giving them these, then they would have it. But again, this is kind of a big deal. Dex, how would they do this without giving them? The whole thing was that we're not going to give them our top of the line tech, like our absolute, game changer piece of tech. How would we stay uninvolved, or would we have to give them the ability to be able to have this tech?
Well, yeah, that would be that's probably the biggest question here is would we be willing to give this technology to another country? Now we land them in other countries. We land them in Turkey. We land them in England or the UK and probably Germany and other places. Obviously, Diego Garcia and Guam and other locations where we've flown them. Those Diego Garcia, I think, being UK, Guam, obviously the US, um, and others. So yeah, it's one thing for us to land there. It's another thing for us to give control of that technology to another country because then they have access to it, the information, the capabilities, and they would probably be piloting it too.
Yeah, and we have never done that. We have never given custody of any of our B-2s to any of our allies. So for this to happen, that is a huge deal. And as far as over the last week, you may have seen this, but again, this is something that was normalized during the last administration. You had, of course, barriers that went up all the time around the White House, and people didn't think that this was weird at all, right? Well, many of us in our community, of course, perk up when we see this kind of thing. Of course, they have a fireworks show around Washington, D.C., and I'm assuming that they're looking at any kind of contingency here and setting up for, anything that could possibly go wrong. But they have these barriers going up all over not only the White House, but all over D.C. So these are already up. In fact, I'll just play a short clip here real quick. Let me show you this. And this is something that, this alarms people when they see this kind of thing. What's kind of even crazier is that this really didn't happen before 2020. And since then, it has happened a bunch of times. Now, at the same time, they actually have warnings of lone wolf attacks tomorrow. So this is something that, obviously there's some folks that will be afraid of this. I'm sure there's a couple people that won't go do their normal thing. I would highly advise that you do your normal thing and that you don't let somebody scare you with an article. But at the same time, I would highly recommend having your head on a swivel. This is the kind of thing where we could have a Fantastic Freddy set up, have that person, whoever commits the thing, be from a certain country, and then say that it's a sleeper, or it really is a sleeper, and then we end up saying, hey, well, this was something where we have ties directly from them to Iran, and now we need to get involved in this, or we have ties from this person to Russia, or we have ties from this person to China, and we need to, kick it up a notch. These kind of things could turn into something bigger. Now, of course, the responses from this, a lot of folks, again, agree. Don't change your life. Don't stop doing what you're going to do. Don't be afraid to go celebrate Independence Day. But at the same time, open your eyes, especially tomorrow. There's a lot of places that are saying that they're canceling their events because of this and that. I do wonder if a lot of these canceled events, if they have a heads up on something else that maybe is above just the general FBI warning that this is happening. Again, that is something that is being put out there. So with this being said, FBI warns of lone wolf attacks. We're going to talk about something even more alarming on our next show, which is that they are actually deploying Marines to support ice missions. You already have 4 destroyers, deployed and supplying the support for ice missions down at the southern border. We have the wall that was just funded, the Golden Dome that was just funded, all of these things happening, and now Marines are actually going to be deployed in Louisiana, Texas, and other states. So if you want to find out about that, you need to follow right after this. Go over to Marfoogle TV, our other channel, and go check this out. We also have an interstellar visitor coming our way, another one, and then Earth just sped up, or it's speeding up. So we'll talk about that on our next show. Join us over on Marfoogle TV. We'll be back in just a few minutes. If you're in chat, if you're watching the replay, all you have to do to get over that video is click here. See you in a minute.